All right. We always freeze at the beginning of these broadcasts because I was tired of having screenshots of me looking like a distracted troll. I'm like, and then that stays up there. Welcome to This is Jen episode 68. Shady, I will give you the countdown to officially begin the music, and that is what people will hear when you look this podcast up. You can still listen to this. We record it live. We broadcast on Facebook and YouTube, but you can also just hear it on your regular whatever podcast app you use. So Shady, you can cue the music in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to This is Jen, episode 68. It is good to be back with you. I took last week off because I fell off a stage at a stand-up comedy club, and I felt beat up by life, and I needed a week off. So it is good to be back with you. Today, we are going to talk about, I think this is going to be my next sketch, why moms are so exhausted all the time. Everyone has these theories. Everyone has theories. Well, maybe it's like a vitamin deficiency. Maybe they need this. Maybe they need that. No, I have my own theory. So we will lay that out. It seems like on social media, people are really enjoying my evolutionary psychology content, my village psychology. And I can't remember if I've ever spelled this out for you guys. I took honors historical anthropology in college. That was going to be my major for a while. I ended up graduating with a different degree, but I know a little bit about about what I speak when I talk about how women were designed to live and to raise children. I did study this at the college level, and it's been a hobby of mine for years. And that brings us to, so we'll go into that whole thing of why I think moms are exhausted. But that brings us to, this is the fashion episode of This is Jen. Now, Shady Ray, you can follow her on Instagram. She now has a simpler Instagram handle. What is it?
Shady Ray Trejo.
Shady Ray Trejo. So she is, for those of you watching on video, you can look this up on YouTube or on Facebook. She's trying a new dress that she got. Now, can we can't, yeah, just tilt over.
Got like a puffy sleeve.
Yeah, there is, for those of you on audio, there is a lot of puffiness going on.
Very puffy.
And a lot of it looks okay. For those of you who remember the show Little House on the Prairie, if Ma Ingalls had to go to a funeral, that's this dress. And I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm the one who wears a $30 Victorian frock from Amazon, and it's velvet. It's like thick velvet, and that's my classic summer piece. So I don't say that with any sort of as a bad thing. I'm just saying it looks like she's at a prairie funeral.
How do you know I don't have a prairie?
Well, that's true. How do I know she doesn't have a prairie or a funeral? So that right.
I have to go to a prairie funeral right after this.
Right now, that actually explains a lot. And so I put this on her dancing around in her little dress on Instagram. And I said, you just watch the podcast viewership. It's going to go. We're going to get a few this episode is about why moms are so exhausted. Why do I suddenly have all these men in their 20s and 30s really getting in on the podcast all of a sudden?
They're like, I like kids.
Look, we take viewers however we get them. We're a half step away from OnlyFans at this podcast.
Prairie OnlyFans.
Speaking of, so, and now I am wearing, for those of you on audio, the complexity of this shirt is hard to understand. So you might, because Shady's dress is simple. It just has like 5 puffs and it's puffy everywhere with some, I don't know sewing terms. Is that an eyelet? It's like punched out flowers. My outfit is far more complex. Could you describe it for people who are listening on audio?
TikTok famous.
Yeah, it's a t-shirt that just says in tiny font, just the most humble,
tiny
simple font. It says TikTok famous. So this shirt is now in my possession because I was celebrating, guys, get that you just won't believe this. Shady. In the past 5 days, count them 5. Did I say a full week? Did I say a full, or did I say less than a week? Did I say 5 days?
I think you said less than. I don't know.
I said 5 days.
Okay.
Try to expand your mind to understand how many new TikTok followers I have.
Oh yeah.
In 5 days, I have gotten 30,000 new TikTok followers. It's like the app is broken, but in a good way. I was thinking, I was like, is this just a normal TikTok experience that every time I open it up, the little head icon that shows you new followers, it's always in the thousands, always. Like I pull it. Oh, it's been 2 hours since I checked TikTok. Oh, only 4,000 new followers. What? It's
Oh.
wild. And the thing is, I didn't even intend to have such enormous success. I don't care about TikTok. I don't, because it's hard to sell tickets to stand-up comedy tours from TikTok. So therefore, it is a low priority for me. If I can't meet my fans in person and hang out with them, I'm not just there to be like a dancing 14-year-old. I only post stuff on TikTok as an afterthought. And I can't stop winning on that app. It's getting to the point it's almost twice as big as my next biggest platform. I have been slogging it out on the gram since 2013, and suddenly I'm just like blowing up on TikTok. So that is where
Save some followers for everybody
look,
else.
I didn't choose the TikTok life.
Oh,
The TikTok life chose me.
dang.
I didn't ask to be a TikTok
It'd
star.
be that way.
It just yeah. And then when I told you earlier, you were like, calm
I was
down.
like, calm down.
Calm down. I'm trying to yeah, this was not
Can you sit down?
yeah, this was not my choice. Why are moms exhausted all the time? So the last social media thing I did was on the subject of, let's see, it wasn't it was, there was one, how to be a traditional mother, and then what was the most recent one? Now I can't even remember. So I will look this up. And it was about screen time. So it's prompted a lot of discussion about what good mothers do, how much they let their kids watch screens and things like that. If you would like to hear my thoughts on screen time, you can watch that sketch. I condensed a lot of thoughts into 60 seconds there. And the point that I was trying to make was, we are putting unreasonable expectations on mothers to expect them to limit screen time. Another sketch that's coming down the pike is, I want to find a pithy way to say, you guys, society, you get to choose. You can choose. Which do you want? What do you want from our lives? Are you going to stop calling CPS if we let our kids run around outside unsupervised? Or are you going to send us free Mary Poppins services, just 24/7 chefs, nannies, everything? Well, I always thought Mary Poppins was not a good nanny. Can you imagine taking your kids to dance on a roof with a chimney sweep without the parents' permission?
Yeah.
That's a
At least
little
shoot a
rant about.
text.
She was a terrible nanny. I would have fired her. And like, no magic without my permission. You're just like in my kid's bedroom doing magic. I don't think so. Like, oh, the teddy bear came to life and was dancing.
You're like,
I'd be doing the
"No."
sign of the cross. I'd have a priest up in there, like getting a fire hose full of holy water. No, that would not work for me. So maybe not Mary Poppins. But what you want to say to society is, which is it? Which is it? Do you want to judge us as moms for how much we let our kids watch screens, or for letting our kids play outside, or for not entertaining them 24/7? Because I will tell you, women weren't meant to be the 24/7 entertainers of their kids. There are some women who I would say they have a special gift for working with young children. They tend to be employed as preschool teachers and things like that. But in general, that is not, that's kind of a special like calling within a calling. The average woman is not meant to play entertainment director to young children 24/7. And so I'm realizing that what I'm doing on social media is becoming a series. It's my masterclass. It's my masterclass where, in one recent sketch, I was setting things on fire, so that almost burned down the studio. And then yeah, it was good. And yeah, and I'm like tearing things up and just being very dramatic. But the point I'm making in this masterclass is that women were not meant to be on 24/7 duty with their kids. So we need something. We need some way to not have to constantly focus on keeping our kids amused. So the way moms did it back in the day, like when my mom was a kid and when my grandfather was a kid, in my grandfather's case, the kids would just play outside all the time. In my mom's case, they would just run around the neighborhood all day, every day. I even got a little bit of that in my childhood where the things sort of changed when they started the America's Most Wanted show, when true crime
Hmm.
became a thing in the late 80s. That is when all that ended. But I do remember before that when my parents would just tell me to come home before the street light came on. And so moms need that. They need that relief. And I swear a big part of my mission is to say to women, if you feel exhausted all the time, it's because you're doing something really unnatural. I think one of the things I want to rail against the most is this idea that the good mothers of tradition, the good mothers of old back in the day, that's what the good mothers, man, they sat down and they played blocks with their kids 12 hours a day. Are you kidding me? You think your great great grandmother had time for that? She had no electricity, no washing machine, no dryer, no electric, yeah. So here's another angle on this that I have not brought up yet, but moms spend a lot of time being tired. And there are all these theories about it. Maybe I have adrenal fatigue. Maybe I have a B12 deficiency. Well, that actually I had a B12 deficiency. But I will tell you, the ennui that I was feeling, the malaise, the crushing exhaustion was actually not from B12. It's that when you are parenting without a village, when you are parenting without that community context where you're raising your kids in isolation, they are not having daily contact with cousins, with other kids they've known their whole lives, with aunts, with uncles, with grandmothers and grandfathers. Suddenly you have to be all things to your kids. So think about this. The modern mom just takes this for granted. She never questions that this is a thing, that she would have to, she's the one, or the parents anyway, are the ones who have to teach their kids morals, fully pass on the faith, whatever their faith is, fully pass that on to them. So give them religious instruction, teach them life skills, like teach them how to cook, teach them how to do laundry, and here's this is a big one for me. Teach them sex ed. I'm convinced that was never meant
I
to
was gonna
be
say.
the parents' job. Okay, because think about this. Imagine if you lived in a tribe, if you lived in a village a few thousand years ago, okay? So you are the women tend to do their work together. They go down to the water well or the river together. They wash clothes together. They chat. They catch up on things. And then the kids are kind of running around with the kids group. And you have the older kids, the tweens and teens, kind of watching the little kids. And so everyone is kind of hanging out with their age group, but nearby one another. Again, I did college papers about this in anthropology in college. And so when you think about it, there is a lot of information flow. So first of all, you get the information flow from the other women. They might say, yes, my son is acting this way and it's very concerning. And another older woman from the village, because you're all at the same river doing your work, washing the clothes or whatever, another older woman might pipe in and say, oh, my son did that as well. And then you're thinking, okay, so her son's a criminal. So I need to really be careful and make sure I get this under control. Or maybe you're like, oh, her son is a wonderful man today. He's a wonderful young man. And so that makes me think maybe what's going on with my kids is fine. You get that information flow when you're constantly in communication with people that you are either related to or have known your whole life. And so, we're really missing that. And so, like with sex ed, I'm convinced that the natural way to do things is, let's say you are an adult in your 30s or 40s, you've got teenage kids, but you have younger siblings who you are in daily contact with. Maybe they themselves are in their late teens or 20s. Well, maybe they can have a little chat. Maybe your sister, who is 15 years younger than you, closer to your kid's age, can just have a little chit chat with the kids about, the birds and the bees and all that. I am convinced that is not for us. That is not meant for I am just about to let my kids have just free reign on the internet. Just Google some terms, see what you come up with. Let me know if you have any questions, because I just feel like I'm not cut out for these conversations. But we have to do that. So we have to teach them the faith, we have to teach them manners, we have to teach them etiquette. And then you feel like when you live in the isolation that we all live in, you feel like you have to be the example of all positive character traits. So I heard a mom say the other day, she's like, I need to teach my daughter to be strong and to be compassionate and to stand up for herself and to confront people when necessary, but also to be kind and to be organized and to clean and to focus on healthful food and to decorate. And it's like, does it sound like maybe you're trying to do the job of 50 people there? Does that sound like that's a lot? Does that sound like, I mean, at what point do you just have multiple personality disorder? If you're like, I'm Martha Stewart, but I'm also strong and I'm interested in politics but I'm also interested in gardening. Look, ladies, gosh, you were not meant to be the role model for your children for all things. So you guys know that I've spent my whole life crafting our village. I mean, this took Joe and I, my oldest is 16. It took us fully 16 years to get the village we had today. We made a lot of sacrifices. Like Joe had career opportunities. He could have made more money. He could have had an easier job. And we sacrificed those so that we could stay in the same city and keep our support system. And so before we lost so many of our parents, we had this great support system. And so at the heyday of our village, Shady has always been my right for years. Shady has been my right-hand woman. So she's been around in so many capacities. My mom, we had Yaya, my husband's mother. She has Alzheimer's now, so she's not able to help us as much. But when she was in her heyday, she was around the kids all the time. My dad, fantastic man, he passed away in 2019. Joe's dad didn't live near us, but he would visit sometimes. And so not only was that a huge help to me as a parent, that my dad would take the kids to their activities and my mom would have them over to spend the night and Shady would do everything and and then they would go over to Yaya's house. And what's interesting is you have a lot of different personalities there. My mom is much more formal. My mom is the one who will tell you that your table manners really need some work and you need to sit up straight.
She's gonna iron your
And
clothes
right,
for you.
and she'll teach the girls about makeup, and that's my mom. My mother-in-law could not have been more the opposite. This is a tough talking Texas woman. She grew up in such poverty. She didn't have running water when in her house, like through her whole life. I mean, that it was like serious, like a lot of times their big dinner was a little bit of cornbread dipped in milk because they had no other food. That is how poor she grew up. So she had this very hard scrabble life where she had to fight for everything she ever got. And I mean, ever like one vignette is that one time my husband Joe and Yaya and a couple of the kids went to Home Depot and they were gone forever. They were gone for hours. And then they came back and at 2 o'clock p.m. Joe poured a glass of wine and took a big swig of it. And he was like, that is not a day that the regional manager of Home Depot will soon forget. To this day, I don't know exactly what happened, but just that the regional manager was involved. Another time, I came in to her house and she was yelling at someone on the phone, just berating them for what a terrible job they were doing. And I thought it was maybe one of the people who helped her with her yard, the landscaper. And she finally accepted their apology and was like, well, okay, do better next time. And she gets off the phone and I asked who it was. It was the mayor of Houston. The mayor of Houston, Texas. She was yelling at something about she didn't like the way the trash cans were, done in her city. And she felt like he or she, I don't know, was really falling down on their job. Yet another time, there were some gang members going through. She lived in kind of a bad part of town and they were knocking over trash cans and stuff. And she confronted them and cornered them with her car in some sort of alley so they couldn't get out. And she held them by blocking them with her car until the police came. Not worried at all, but they were known gang members.
So you're not going nowhere.
Yeah, she didn't care. And someone was like, well, what if they retaliate? Her only comment was, they better bring a gun. And that's my mother-in-law. Like constant, just afraid of nothing. Like final story to tell you this personality type. When she took the kids to the pool and my daughter Lane, actually multiple of my children, but her especially, is very scared of bugs, and a big red wasp, like this big, landed next to Lane, and she started crying, and Yaya picked up the big red wasp in her hand, crushed it in her fist, and just threw it off to the side. And when we were like, "Did you get stung?" She was like, "Oh,
Probably.
I guess so." Like, she didn't even notice. If I got stung by a wasp, I would have to be put in a full body cast for 2 weeks. I would have to be given Vicodin and morphine and Valium. I would have to seek therapy. I would have to do the EMDR therapy for trauma, all of that if I got stung by a wasp. She just picked it up in her fist, crushed it, and threw it. So the point is, because we went out of our way to create a village, I did not feel that same pressure to be all things to my kids, because I would think, well, Yaya is strong enough for 10 men. Like, I mean, she is a strong personality. If anything, maybe sometimes erring on the side of being too strong, too confrontational. Did you need to tell the manager at Luby's, PG-13 language here, but I will never forget, we were at Luby's and the manager was informed that the staff at the Jello table was, and I quote, "more useless than tits on a boar hog." So I just, that, yeah. So there was no shortage of my kids seeing, what would it be like to stand up for yourself? What would it be like to be super confrontational and fight every battle that ever comes your way? And then there's me. I mean, I am so non-confrontational. And which is weird, because a lot of fans tell me they're scared of me. And I was setting up an interview with a publication that is known to me, and the editor of that publication said, "Okay, I'm going to pass you off to this guy," and he ended by saying, "Be nice to him." Do I not seem nice? I don't know.
I think
A
you
lot.
seem nice.
A lot of people tell me that, like, they'll see me in public, but they don't talk to me because I seem scary. It's my TikTok fame.
It's your
That's
TikTok
they're
fame.
intimidated by my TikTok
I
fame.
can smell it.
Yeah, that's right. So I am the most non-confrontational person in the world. I like to think that it's because I'm open-minded. Like, if someone were to walk up to me in the grocery store and, like, cut off my arm, I might be like, "Well, but have I heard their side of the story?" Maybe there was a
Maybe they
reason. Like,
need
I
that
don't.
arm.
They might have had a reason to do this. I feel like I can't confront them about this until I know a little bit more about where they were going. You guys know, there was one time when someone really seemed to be following me home. They were trailing me, and it was getting very creepy and scary that I was winding through my neighborhood and taking all these weird twists and start going into cul-de-sacs. I mean, this person was obviously following me, and it was a man who looked really creepy, and I felt rude. I actually felt rude for not letting him just come to my house and kill me, because if that's what he wants to do, who am I to say that my plan is better than his? Maybe, like, I don't want to be rude and not let him stalk me and kill me, if that's what he's into. So that's me. Polar opposite of my mother-in-law. So I have been an example to my children of what it looks like to be a complete non-confrontational pushover if they ever need that skill. And my mother-in-law was the opposite. And then my mom is strong in her own way, but again, in more of a, she will get the 30% discount at Kohl's with the extra Kohl's cash. Like, try to tell my mother her Kohl's cash is expired. It's not.
Does not expire.
It's not going to work out well for
It's
you.
not
She
expired.
will. It will be Braveheart, like the movie Braveheart, but at the Kohl's customer service. So she's strong in her own way, different way. So my kids, that took a lot of burden off of me, that I didn't feel that pressure that I have to show my daughters what it looks like to be strong, or my sons for that matter. I don't have to do that, because they have other role models. And actually, a great example, which segues into the next topic, is it is one of my daughter's birthdays, my youngest daughter. It is her birthday. And so it's nice for kids to have nice homemade cakes. That's not my gift. If we wanted to do a blob cake that was half cooked, and if you want to see someone get really angry, there is something about cooking that I truly believe that I have certain mental disorders that have perhaps not quite been diagnosed, and cooking triggers a lot of them. Baking with young children, can't do it. So, you know who makes our cakes? Shady Ray. Every single time she makes our cakes. And so this is a blessing for her because now she gets to highlight the skill. Because when we, like tonight, we'll have pizza. A couple of my daughter's little friends might come over. My mom will be there. Back in the day, my dad and Yaya would be there, and everyone talks about, like, wow, Shady's so amazing. Look at this fantastic cake that she made. So it's a chance for her to shine and her to show off her skills and for me not to do things I suck at. It's such a win-win. It's incredible. And someone said at one point, well, don't you feel guilty for not making your kids birthday cakes? I was like, what? No, because again, women weren't meant to do every single thing with their kids. Some moms are better at having really deep conversations. That is a specialty of mine. Man, you have a kid who is having a mental crisis. I'm your woman. I can have a 5-hour conversation where we analyze things and we unpack things. Like that is one of my strong suits. But I have a friend, she is great at baking with kids. She does glitter crafts. Like that is how, I mean,
Oh,
she is she
that's
is
next
I she's
level.
elite. Yeah. But she was like, having those deeper conversations, not my strong suit. So she's like, yeah, I wish I had like a sister or a cousin or a grandmother or a mother who was around to take that on when I have a kid who's having a hard time. And so I always think that this is such a beautiful example of a village in action, that Shady always makes the cakes for my kids. And then they actually get cakes that taste delicious, unlike if I were to try to do this. And it's just such a win-win. So to put a point on this, um, women, here's why you feel exhausted. You feel exhausted because you are trying to live out the role of like 30 different people. It is not normal that you would be the one to teach your kids about sewing. Kids should know if you like how to sew a button onto clothes. They should know a little bit about how to do their laundry. They should know a little bit about cooking. And yes, the mothers do, they traditionally of course have a big influence on their kids, but they're not meant to teach their kids every single thing in life and be an example of every possible virtue that a human being could possibly have. That's not supposed to be on you. And the fact that you feel that you are not doing a good enough job, if you can't do that, if you're not good at every single thing under the sun, it makes you feel like you're failing. That's why you're exhausted. It's exhausting to feel like you're failing all the time. It's exhausting to feel like you don't measure up. And that, I really believe that that is a big part of the exhaustion crisis among mothers, is you're exhausted because you feel like you're failing all the time, when the reality is, no, you're doing an awesome job. You're doing great. You just don't have a village, and you're trying to be a one woman village, and it's too much. It's too much. All right. So transitioning to the next subject. So it is my youngest daughter's birthday, and this is the daughter that I wrote about. I had a viral piece. Let's see if I can pull it up. One of my first viral pieces before I was a TikTok star back in the day, um, was about this particular child. Yeah, that got 200 comments back in the day. That was a lot. What year was this? I think, yeah, 2013. So this was about, so the one thing that would calm this child down is she did love Shaun the Sheep, and she would call it Shaun Sheep. So, and then one day, and that was the only thing that would calm her down. And one day, Shaun the Sheep was just gone off of Netflix. I went to pull it up,
Oh
and the
no.
first thing that came up, I'll show you the
Oh
screenshot here.
no.
It was a British show called Shank, and it's like, all of London street gangs battle for food, and after his brother is murdered, blah blah blah. I'm like, and also there's also one called This Is England, about people murdering each other. Mark of Cain, about people murdering each other. This all came up when you put in Sean, spelled Shaun. It made me very concerned. What's going on in England? Are you guys okay? Do you need help? Do you need us to send Americans come and fix things again? I mean, let me know. Let me know what you guys need. So, so this really got around in 2013. I said, Dear Netflix, first of all, let me take a moment to thank you for the excellent service you offer. Uh, my husband once suggested that we cancel our account in a brief and very unfortunate spasm of hyperfrugality, and I thought that I was going to have to resort to feeding my children by trough because that's how I made food, was like just put them in front of Netflix. And I also gave them a shout out. If you guys don't know, Netflix briefly changed their DVD service to Quickster with a QWIKSTER. Did you know that?
Mm-mm.
This was big high tech news in 2013. So they said, we'll call the streaming service Netflix and we'll call the DVD service Quickster. But they didn't get at Quickster on Twitter, and it was a 19-year-old guy who had a real penchant for smoking marijuana, and all of his tweets were like, sparking up a big old fatty blunt today, and that was like at Quickster, which
Oh
Netflix had
no.
officially changed its name to, and it was so bad. It was so bad that the CEO actually had to just scrap it and was like, okay, it's all Netflix now. So I said, that's something I would do. I can relate. So let me describe in my own words from 2013, this child who was 2 at the time. I said her favorite pastimes include hitting her siblings, dumping things out of boxes, pouring hand soap into her hair, writing on non-paper surfaces with markers, and throwing food on the floor at mealtimes. Sounds like typical toddler behavior, you probably just said. Perhaps it is. But what you have to understand is that she does not do these things occasionally. It is her preferred way to spend all of her waking hours. She is like a robot who is programmed for chaos and destruction. A very cute robot who also likes to give hugs and kisses, but one that is bent on destruction nonetheless. And I went on to point out, this is my 5th kid. This is I know a few things about kid behavior. This is I was like, this is a whole different thing. And again, she was my 5th kid in 7 years. Like, I know a few things about toddler behavior. And while she was doing this, she was one of 3 kids in diapers. So 2 of her siblings were in diapers. Tough season. I don't know how I survived 2013. I'll tell you that. I continue in my open letter to Netflix. Unfortunately, enforcing rules such as no stabbing mommy's printer with a fork and don't take off your diaper and throw it at people while you're standing on the table elicits minutes long screams. And long story short, the alcohol section of our monthly budget is getting a little higher each month. In a turn of events that will undoubtedly be the driving force behind my cause for canonization, this child is about to drop her afternoon nap, which means that my only respite from the eardrum wearying insanity is when she'll snuggle up with me with her blankie in front of the TV to watch her favorite show, Shaun the Sheep. Imagine a snake charmer taming a feisty king cobra into dazed submission, and you begin to have an idea of the impact this show has on her and the importance of its role in my house. So here is the big moment. At approximately 10:38 a.m., I turned around from getting my coffee to see said 2-year-old scribbling on the baby's forehead with a black Crayola marker. When I tried to take the pen from her, she reacted as if it were an appendage of her body I was attempting to steal. By the time she got out of the timeout corner, my will to live was just about gone. I desired to clean the marker off the baby's forehead without being interrupted by new battles, and so I turned to Sean. I entered his name, and instead of the image of the mischief-loving sheep, I saw this instead, and that's all the crazy English movies. I went on to say to Netflix, you did this before with Dora the Explorer, and I did not complain. I wasn't happy about it, but it didn't cause me too much of a problem since my 4-year-old says she doesn't like all that Spanish talking and wants to watch only programs that use real words. I added in parentheses, we will be adding a multiculturalism component to our homeschool soon. I only muttered a few grumbles when Downton Abbey suddenly was gone. Since I knew I could track down new episodes, I would find and watch that show if the only place it were available was on one television in a yurt in Turkestan. That was a good reference. That was a good Turkestan reference. But now Sean has disappeared too, and I'm reaching my limit. You got us hooked on these shows, and now you have a duty to keep them going, and I don't want to hear about how Amazon outbid you on the rights. Did you see that movie Inception, where the guys hacked into the CEO's dreams to get him to change his mind about a business decision? You know where Jeff Bezos lives. Think outside of the box. I'm trying to be a loyal customer. I don't want to switch to Amazon. And let's see. I beg you to give us 90 days notice, resources for counseling, and a gift certificate to care.com so that we can find alternative childcare arrangements. And one thing I skipped over is also, so there was a show that was still there called Timmy Time. It was also that same type of animation, also about a sheep. Um, and so I said to my daughter, I said, "Oh, what about Timmy Time?" And I pulled it up. Look, he's a sheep too. It's the same premise. This is the exact same thing. And she toddled over to the screen, and I thought, "Oh, good, she's engaged with Timmy Time." And she punched Timmy in the face on the screen. So that how I survived the year 2013 is not something I still understand. And the only thing that got me through that season was fantasizing about great acts of violence against people who told me that it goes by so fast. That was the only thing that really got me through that. Is just thinking about if I could get away with it, what I would do to these people. The days are long, but the years are short. No, the days were long, the years were long, the weeks were long, everything was long. I was so like people talk about being triggered. Oh, that phrase, it goes by so fast. No, to have 6 babies in 8 years, one of them who is just like an absolute terror, and then tell me it goes by so fast. Okay, so the point is, it is her birthday. It is now her 10th birthday, and she
She's wonderful.
she's
She
wonderful.
is
And you know what's
wonderful.
interesting? Oh, wait. I might actually have this actual comment. Hang on. Is it not? Well, okay, someone left me a comment. I'm not finding it. Okay. And they talked about so they said I came from a homeschool family, and she said my sister was just like that. I'll never forget. She said that she and her siblings had to set the microwave timer when it was up to them to watch their siblings, because they would argue about who had more minutes of watching her. And she would do things like she'd throw things in the fish tank, and she was like, it was exactly like you describe your daughter, just out of control. And the person who left the comment said, "My sister is now 12 years old, and she is so kind." That is the salient feature of her personality. She is so kind, and she is sweet, and she is generous, and she is just wonderful. She is a wonderful preteen kid. And that is
That's
exactly,
Timmy,
there
yeah.
must be something with it. So put the word out. Put the word out to your friends who have, and I can't speak, my sons were, they had their own. Actually, my youngest son he was a pretty easy baby, but my oldest son he just never slept. That was his thing. So there were challenges with him. It just wasn't the constant insane chaos. But I can say with authority, if you have a toddler daughter, and it's probably true with sons, who is like a robot who is bent on destruction. All causing a mess was not a means to an end to find a toy with this child. Causing a mess was the end. That was the end in and of itself. And if you have a kid like that, or if you know someone who has a kid like that, I will say she is a delight. She is a joy. Yesterday, Shady, she asked me if she could get her siblings presents for her birthday, if she could submit a list of things her siblings might like. Isn't
Oh,
that so
that's
sweet?
sweet.
Yeah. So I just want to give you hope that when you have a child who is absolutely crazy as a toddler, they might surprise you. They might surprise you with how low maintenance they are. I kind of have this theory that kids have a certain amount of high maintenance that they will hit you with throughout their life. And like
Just tapers off.
if they do it all, if they spend it all in their toddler years, then in their preteen and teen years, it'll be a little easier. So that is a word of encouragement to anyone who might be going through that right now. Do not tell them it goes by so fast. Last thing I will note is we have audio. Let me see if I can bring this up. We have audio of me falling off a stage in
Ugh.
yeah,
It makes my
that's
knees hurt
the
thinking about it.
I know. What okay, I'll get this in just a second. So we have audio of me falling off a stage. So this was in Omaha. And it was my my agent was like, just make sure that you want it. This is your first comedy club tour because I did theaters last time, so this is the first time I'm out at comedy clubs, and she said, just we're trying to introduce you to the club scene and just make sure that you make the best impression possible. Which I was like, I'm on it, absolutely. You can count on me. So I went out. I was at the Funny Bone in Omaha. Wonderful place. If you live in the Omaha area, I really enjoyed that club. It's very well run, very kind staff. And so I had to do two shows in a row. And so I did the first show, and it was this great triumph. So I did a party for my Patreon folks last week, and I was telling them about all the pressure. There was a lot of behind the scenes pressure on me, a lot, going into that first Saturday show. And it was this wonderful moment of triumph where it just went so well. It surpassed all my expectations. It was so wonderful. And so this happened as I was waving, oh, goodbye, friends, goodbye. And the crowd is like, they were so into it. And what I want you to hear is how it killed the vibe of the crowd. The crowd was going, and then I fall, and it just totally killed it. So hopefully you guys can hear this. I think you'll be able to hear this. We'll see. Now, what killed me about that is that then afterwards, it's all anybody wanted to talk about. That no one, I wanted people to say, "Oh, this show was so fun. I love
Like, are
your new
you
material." It's
okay?
all anyone wanted to talk about. And then I so I did the second show, and I started to feel really bad towards the end. And normally when you do performance, normally it's you don't feel physical pain or anything that might have been bothering you
Your
before you
adrenaline
were on stage.
kicks
Yeah,
in.
your adrenaline takes care of it. I have never felt physical pain when I'm on stage. And I've done one time. I had to do, this is pre-COVID, but back in the day I had a fever of like 103.5, but when I was on stage I didn't notice. But during my performance, with about 18 minutes left to go, I started feeling really bad. I started feeling woozy. I had a stomach ache, of all things. And then I felt so bad about this. And if you are listening, just know I feel terrible, and I would love to make it up to you. Some people had waited till the very end at the meet and greet after the second show to talk to me, and they'd been waiting 30, 40 minutes at that point. And when I was talking to the people in front of them, I was losing connection with the conversation. I thought I was going to throw up. I thought I was going to pass out. And I was trying to make it to that last group of people. And then finally I just had to call it. I said, I'm so sorry, but I have to go lie down. And so that's when, normally you would seek medical care. But I had a very early flight the next morning from Omaha to Shady's
She
shaking
does
her head.
it.
And I wish this weren't how I am. I had a very early flight from Houston to Omaha, and I got the first class upgrade. And I was like, look, I'm not going to sit in some ER and just to be told I'm
Not
fine,
allowed
which
to
I
be first
probably am.
class.
Right. Like if I
Come
die, I die
on.
in first class. Wouldn't that be dramatic? Jen, she passed away peacefully in the first
In the
class cabin.
first
I mean,
class.
look, if that's how God wants to call you home, I am open to that possibility. So I did not seek medical attention because
Still
I did
haven't.
not. I never get the first class upgrade anymore now that everyone is traveling
You
again.
gave
Yes,
me your last one.
and Shady points out I still have not
She
sought
still
medical
hasn't.
attention, but I feel like I'm
She's
fine.
fine.
How would you know if I got knocked insane? Like how would you know if I had brain damage? I mean, the way I am, it's like you wouldn't. Maybe if I start being reasonable and stop signing up for crazy things like doing comedy shows on 2 weeks notice, you might be like, I think Jen hit her
You
head
become a
pretty hard.
morning person.
Yeah, right.
And I'm
If
like,
I'm like,
oh,
I'm
we
up
gotta go
bright and
talk to
early, guys. I'm
somebody.
having my green smoothie. I gave up coffee and I'm out for a jog. You'll be like,
Uh-uh.
oh, that was,
Call
she should have
somebody.
gone to the doctor. That was really bad. And
We
we are
knocked the
afraid
screw
for her.
loose.
Okay. So what you will want to do is get in on my Patreon. Patreon is where you can do like exclusive fan communities. So I always tell, we're starting to do parties. And I think I'm going to do this once a month. It's like, you can ask me anything. And this is so cool. I was able to bring some Patreon fans on with me, like bring them on video so we can chat. patreon.com/thisisjen. We have a lot of fun over there. For those of you watching live, hit the like button so that Facebook and YouTube know that this is not a show created by Russian hackers, that maybe real people such as yourself are watching it. So hit that like button to tell them that we're just a legit operation over here. And get on my email list, JF email. What is it? JF email list.com. I should have tour dates soon. We're being very targeted with my next stand-up comedy tour stops to make sure that we're going to locations that are easy for you guys to get to, some venues that you'll really like. And but we're putting a lot of care into this. So it'll take me probably a couple weeks to be able to announce my full comedy club fall tour, but it will be a lot of fun. And I hopefully will be coming to your city soon. The Patreon is patreon.com/thisisjen. Email list is jfemaillist.com. And we will be back with you next week here on This Is Jen.